Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Kep. I'm a co-founder at From Day One. Welcome to our webinar. Today, we're exploring a pressing topic and a positive one called employee recognition, more important than ever. Whether they're working remotely or on the front lines, employees need to feel seen and heard. How can companies update their practices to acknowledge good work and encourage collaboration in a tumultuous era? In helping workers get through the highs and the lows, the payoff is better retention, higher engagement, and a better corporate culture. Before we dive into this topic, we'd like to thank our partners Lumapps, Peakon, and Reflektive. I'll tell you a little bit about each one. Lumapps is a social and collaborative enterprise communication platform designed to connect, inform, and engage employees, no matter where they're working. This innovative digital workplace equips organizations to break down silos, to streamline internal communication, and to provide a space for employees to belong and have a purpose. Fully integrated with your productivity suite, Lumapps simplifies access to all corporate content, business apps, and social features in one place. Peakon is an employee success platform that converts feedback into insights that you can put to work. Ensuring that all employees have a voice in their organization is what we strive to achieve. So we're excited to support this webinar. And finally, Reflektive is a performance management company helping customers achieve business results through goal alignment, engagement, and continuous improvement. Recognition is a key component to successful performance programs, and we're excited to be part of this webinar. Now, a few quick logistical items. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand within 24 hours of the event. Look out for an email in about 24 hours with the link. That email will also have info on Society of Human Resources Management credit for this session in terms of continuing education. And look out for a written account of the conversation next week on our website at fromday1.co. Around 3 p.m., we'll have a Q&A session. You can submit your questions at any time using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And Lydia will, our moderator, will convey those to the speakers. Now I'd like to introduce our moderator, the business journalist Lydia Dishman, who reports and edits for Fast Company on tech and leadership, and has written for CBS Money Watch, Fortune, and the New York Times, among others. Okay, Lydia, over to you.
Thank you so much, Steve, and thank you, panelists, for joining us and attendees for tuning in. We are excited about this very timely topic about recognition and engagement today. So without further ado, we have a lot of people to talk to today. So I would like everyone to introduce themselves and tell us about a moment when you felt recognized and appreciated. It doesn't have to be in your current job. It could just be sometime over the course of your career. Renee, why don't we start with you?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. I'm so thrilled to be a part of the panel today. My name is Renee Konzelman, and I'm the Vice President of Human Resources for Honeywell UOP. This is a division of Honeywell based out of Chicago and a part of the broader Honeywell organization. I'm great and excited to be here. You know, when I thought about the time that I felt appreciated, I actually went back to a time about 4 or 5 years ago where I was messing up a project left and right. I had a couple of pretty big mistakes that I, with the best intentions, I missed an approval that I was supposed to get. I surprised my boss, which you never do. And things were kind of going pretty downhill. And I remember that my skip level boss called me and just had a quick conversation. It was only 5 minutes. And she acknowledged that I was working incredibly hard. We talked through how I could potentially remedy a couple of the things that were a little bit off the rails. And she just, applauded my efforts. And I think that, that is something that sticks in my mind because sometimes you really, really try and it doesn't ever go perfectly. But the fact that there was still some acknowledgement of effort and support to get everything back on track really has made an impact. So that's my memory that really sticks to me, and it teaches me how to recognize others ever since.
Thank you. That's a great little anecdote. Dionne, why don't you go next?
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Dion Poulton. I am Chief Diversity Officer at Care New England Health System. I started here in December of last year, so I've been here for 8 months, and it's been a long 8 months, given all that's been going on. And just actually tied to what I just shared, I'm having those moments of recognition fairly often, and being in diversity and in light of all that's been going on, in particularly the last few months, I've been getting a lot of feedback, and most of it good, in that it's wonderful to know that it's something that I've said or that I've done that's making a difference for people, to make sense of what's been going on in society, or even to solve a problem that's gone on in the workplace. So that's what I would share.
Thank you. Pramod, why don't you go next?
Well, hello, everybody. I think I am the Chief Talent Strategy Officer at American Cyber Systems, and we provide IT staffing and solutions for the rest of the country and rest of the world, actually. So I've been here for about 3.5 years. Prior to that, I was the Dean of Engineering. I was in academia. So I think my recognition is both on the personal and the professional level. The professional level, I think I always felt recognized when some young faculty came to me and wanted to use me as a mentor. They wanted to give the charge of their career into your hands and take what you tell them seriously. That was always a very emotional moment for me. And I think on the personal level, I think I gave 2 degrees in engineering to my daughter on stage. And she chose to do her PhD in engineering and chose to follow my career. So that was the highest recognition I got, because my wife is all for medical professions. So she wanted her to become a doctor, but I think I won and she became an engineer.
I love that he's just unabashedly saying that he won. Excellent. Sean, why don't you go next?
Everyone, I'm Sean Slattery. I'm Director of Customer Change Management at Lumapps, where I guide and advise our customers on how to help their organization, their people, through the change of implementing a digital workplace. I'm also an adjunct faculty member advising students in Northwestern University's Master of Science in Learning and Organizational Change. So a lot of interest in this topic, and excited to discuss and learn with my colleagues here.
Danae, last but not least.
Awesome. Thanks, Lydia. Super excited to be here as well. My name is Danae Harper. I am Director of Talent Acquisition and Recruitment Marketing for Pizza Hut US. So not only manage all of the talent acquisition for our corporate office, but all of our national media to support our franchisees and all of our restaurants. At Pizza Hut, we have a very strong recognition culture, and we always have. So I was trying to think back of kind of the most meaningful, and really it was one somewhat recently where I was highlighted externally, and I didn't share it with anybody internally, just that's not my style to be like, oh, look, but somebody found it and they sent it to a lot of my internal clients and just like highlighted it, but then really gave like personal stories behind it on like why they agreed with the external recognition. So it's just a really cool, like out of the blue, didn't realize that they would have, and I don't know how they came across this, external piece, but it was really, really cool that they made it much more personal and utilize that to share a story on how I was able to kind of impact the team.
John, we're not letting you off the hook. You just did the intro and he just kind of slipped right on it out of there. So
that's right. So
recognition.
Thankfully, I just recently was recognized. There was we just wrapped a major project last week, and the project manager just kind of gave a summary of what went on in a post within Lumapps. And it's nice that she was able to recognize each of the team members and say how they contributed and make the broader organization aware of the outcome of the project and that it was done. And there was a lot of kudos and way to go team kind of comments throughout the post. So just making that part of how we wrap projects or complete an initiative and make the organization aware and make that an opportunity for folks to come together and celebrate and recognize one another.
So I'm hearing a lot of different types of recognition. I'm hearing everything from choosing to follow in someone's footsteps, Pramod, both as a mentor and also from your daughter, from getting, just feedback from Dionne, from these types of kudo recognition type thing, also just a little pat on the back. So if you had to define recognition, how would you define it? Who wants to go first?
I can take a shot at that. See, in my mind, recognition is both extrinsic and intrinsic. many times we chose to reward somebody extrinsically by giving them a salary, giving them a bonus, or giving them a certificate. And I think that's very usual in all the organizations. Organizations that are successful use that method to reward their people. But to me, I think intrinsic recognition is a shared responsibility. To put a pat on somebody's back, to invite them to an important meeting, to give them half a day off, give them an opportunity to lead a project. Those are the kind of things I think make people feel very honored and very respected. I also feel that before you start expecting intrinsic recognition from somebody, you also have an obligation as a supervisor to give the environment and give the conducive circumstances for people to excel. So it's supervisors, it's easy to expect intrinsic recognition of people saying that they will do whatever you want to do. But unless and until you are in that position where you are a competent leader and a capable leader, only then people will respond to your good behavior and then become wonderful, so you can intrinsically recognize them. For me, in this COVID environment, I have a 5-point formula. I call it SMART. I'm sympathetic, I am motivational, I'm available, I'm responsible, and I make the best use of technology. So that's the mantra for me, to be a good supervisor, and then I see how people respond, how people perform. And more than just giving me the numbers, I see how good of a mentor they are, what good of a crisis manage do they do, are they able to perform irrespective of what the circumstances are. And then you go out of the way to very compassionately recognize them and call them to a meeting and tell them what a wonderful job they've done, other than just performing in the workplace.
So it sounds like you're saying that recognition is an integral piece of leadership.
Absolutely.
Does anyone want to add to that?
I can add a little bit, because I completely agree with everything Pramod said. And I think too that recognition is really personal. And so you can do so much at the corporate level and company level with programs and ideas, but so much of it is dependent on the person and how they want to be recognized, and understanding how they want to be recognized, I think is really, really important. You know, we have a lot of teams at Pizza Hut where, you know, the executive assistants or the leaders of those organizations will ask for feedback on, like, how do you want to be recognized? Some people hate public recognition, and the thought of getting recognized at our all company meeting would like send them running. And then other people value quality time, you know, kind of languages of love we've all heard about. And so I think how you define recognition and how you appreciate it, it's really, you know, personal, and trying to, you can't do it at an org level, but as a manager and as a leader, you can do it for your individual team and try to recognize them in a way that they're going to respond to and appreciate most.
I think that makes a ton of sense. I was thinking about it as, you know, if you asked yourself on your team, do you know how each one of your team members likes to feel appreciated? What is going to make them feel valued and feel like coming to work every day is worth it? To your point, sometimes it's public. Sometimes if it is public, it wasn't recognition. And so to be able to kind of have your finger on the pulse of what is appropriate for each person, but then in the background, you know, as organizational leaders, what are the tools that you're putting in the toolbox for managers? So depending on what they learn from their employees in terms of how those employees like to be recognized, okay, then they go into the toolbox and they pick the right tool. Sometimes it's going to be monetary. Sometimes it's going to be public. Sometimes it's going to be that quality time. Sometimes it's going to be project or experience related. But do your managers or do your leaders, do they even know what those tools are in that toolbox? I think we can help support that, but then recognize that you've got to use a different tool for every person.
Dionne?
And I thank you. I agree with what's being said, and I think I kind of bring it down to two things. Recognition is letting somebody know that I see you and I value you for who you are and for who and what you bring to the table. At this particular moment, who you are is enough. And when someone feels like they're recognized, then they feel empowered to give their best, to do their best, to show up every day. And alternatively, as a manager, I think it's important for us to make sure that the employees all the time feel that. And even when they mess up, they should know that they're still being valued and that they're seen. And otherwise, we have to make sure that we're feeding into the self-esteem of the people they're working with. So regardless of what's happening, I think it's important to always make sure that people know that.
I like that you said about feeling seen, because I think that it's been especially important now to recognize how people are feeling, and we have to do it in such a different way. We're not able to just drop into, next to someone's desk or step into their office. So the question for all of you now is, how are you keeping track of how employees are feeling? How do you make them feel seen? Are there any formal metrics for that, or are you just sort of doing informal check-ins? Sean, do you want to start with that?
Sure. Of course, I come from a particular perspective on this, but one of the challenges of feeling seen, especially when working remote, is you're not visible in the same ways. And, being someone who talks about digital workplaces, that is, there are different technologies that give people ways to be present and be visible to one another, whether it's chatting or, the Zoom multi-square kind of panel as well, or even just kind of asynchronous discussion forums. One of the first things we did when Lumapps went entirely to remote work was set up an area where folks could share work from home experiences and best practices and what they're struggling with. And that gave a lot of visibility to different people's situations. We even began to share pictures of our setups, some of which were entirely not ideal because we suddenly had to make do with what we could about how we could attend work as best as possible, and with pets and children and folks like that, just being part of the workday and discussing that pretty openly helped with that mutual recognition of feeling seen. I see what you're going through, here's what I'm going through. That really helped us bring us together in a challenging time.
I'm going to go around to each of you, because I know you all have different answers. So Renee, next.
Yeah, this remote experience has been, a whirlwind in many respects, and the overused term, unprecedented times. I made a decision in the very, very beginning of this that I was going to be intentional and positive about this remote component. And I got into a really philosophical debate with one of my leaders who felt that the remote environment was hindering his ability to connect with his employees. And while I appreciate that it's harder, I just fundamentally decided, no, this is the new normal for however long it's going to be. We have to embrace it, and we have to figure out how to make this virtual environment intentional and intimate, and change our operating system so that you can get the same results that you would get by knocking on a person's door and checking in on them. And so it has been, hard, no doubt about it, because you have to think differently about how you interact. I am video on all the time, and whether the hair is messy, whether the kids are in the background, and I actually have found that some of the people I didn't interact with that maybe weren't even in my office, right? Some of us work in, multinational corporations where you're a voice on a phone on a little hockey puck in the middle of the room. And now they're a face on a screen, and they have the ability to chime into a meeting in the same way as the person that might otherwise have been sitting next to you in the meeting room. And so video on all the time, checking in, maximizing the use of text messages and, FaceTiming for phone calls instead of, just talking to the person, and being really intentional about that personal connection, taking time to meet daily with the team. It's an extra meeting on calendar, but the connectivity that you feel with the team when you get the opportunity to connect with what's in some cases a global team every day is really, really positive. And shout out to the Honeywell, leaders on the phone. I think, it's been hard, across the board, but I think everybody had to try to stay positive and make it work. And so now we're still innovating. We're still trying to figure out different things to do, but you have to believe that you can be intentional about your interactions and have quality conversations with a computer screen between you, And then you'll be able to, you know, think about how you change your operating system in order to achieve that objective.
In my case, what I started doing was having more frequent meetings with my team, if not every day, every other day. And the first thing I would do is to ask them how they were feeling, and also brought in issues about their family. So they felt that somebody was caring. I think that went a long way. When somebody asked you, how's your family? Are the kids back from college? How are you managing this? I think that created a platform for a future discussion. And I also wanted to let them know that we are thinking about future. This is transitory. This is going to go away, and then we will be again back to where we were. So I created a message of 3 C's. I say you need to connect, contain, and cultivate. So you need to connect with everybody, your customers, your team members, because the leaders report to me, so they have their own team. So I always tell them, connect with them as we are, contain what you have right now, and think about the future. So people know that they have a job, the management is already thinking about future. So that helped. The third thing I did was empowerment. We have an offshore team about 1,000 people in India, and we were told by the government that within the next 24 hours, the offices would be closed. So everybody was scared, and we were scared because that's our operation. So within 24 hours, we were able to buy 1,000 laptops and give it to them so they could work from home. I think they felt so recognized and so appreciated. And I think since then, they've been performing at a very high level. So I think if you bring this relation to personal, give them support, also ask them to what they've been doing, that's normal. That's a normal part of your work because you've been asking them about work all the time. But I think adding few personal flavors to this recipe makes a huge amount of difference. And also you empower them. So that helped me a lot.
And it's natural to do that right now, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody is got their families and their, you know, their pets in the video, you know, in the video and whatever's going on in the background. And you got to lean into that and, you know, just celebrate the whole self of the people that you're interacting with. I think it's a great point.
And one time I forgot to put the background on my computer. So my wife comes from the top. She's tied her hair in a towel wearing a nightie. So I normal time I will get mad at her. I'll be kind of uneasy. So I said, hey, here's my wife. Come and say hello.
Yeah,
So
come say hello.
All understood.
Exactly.
We're also human. We are working from home and this is all normal. So I think bringing that personal touch and compassion to the equation did make a difference for me.
Dionne, I keep going back to feeling seen, and I'm just wondering what you're doing with your team in terms of that. How are you keeping track of how people are feeling?
So as I said, so I'm in healthcare. So we went through the COVID, and we still are going through the COVID. But we're unique in that we work for it's a healthcare system, and so which encompasses 3 hospitals. So while some of us are at home, there are people on the front lines who are saving lives basically, and say they don't have the luxury of working from home. So that kind of creates a gap in terms of approach. We can't approach all employees the same way. So what we've done internally is to help showcase some of the work that's being done by the nurses and the physicians. One thing we did was at the height of the COVID here, our company actually purchased some hotel rooms because, you know, when people leave the hospitals, they don't want to go home and expose their family members. So they had to stay in hotels. And coupled with that, right after that was the George Floyd incident. And as you know, I mean, everyone was affected by that to some degree. And as the Chief Diversity Officer, I had to address that while we're also working remotely. So I put out a statement, which I'm sure most businesses did, and then actually invited employees for an open dialogue. And so the following week, and that was, so I facilitated a dialogue with actually the CEO of the hospitals, Dr. Jim Finale. And we ended up having over 800 people show up on that call. And we facilitated a beautiful discussion. There were tears. There were just, I mean, it was a very real opportunity for people to share what they've been experiencing, what they've been going through. And so that's one big thing that we've been doing in terms of just recognizing where people are and understanding that we all witnessed, and essentially we all witnessed a murder. But we're all we're all looking at these through our different lenses. And despite the fact that we are coming through our different lenses, we all collectively witness something and individually witness something. So how are we going to come together? And so the conversations have been just incredible. I had actually 3 more today, just speaking to different people and different departments and finding out how it plays out in different environments and the work that we do, it's really enriching, and I'm hopeful that we're moving in the right direction.
Something I found really interesting, Don, as you were speaking, is it made me think that an important first step of recognition and feeling seen is having a culture where, if one needs to, being able to express oneself, to say, here's what I'm experiencing, so that others can recognize it, so that others can see what they're going through.
And if I can speak to that, and that's why I did put out a statement. I did ask people to come, because I really think that it's unfair for employees to have to go to work after something so major and expect and act like nothing's happened. And I use the clinical term separate and function. So this thing just happened, so let's just separate what happened over here and get to work and get your work done. But how do you check that out the door? How can you separate that? If we are encouraged to bring our whole selves to work, then that means our whole selves have to be acknowledged when we come to work. And that means we have to acknowledge when things have been affecting us. And everyone was affected to some degree. So how do we find the commonality and the bridge between each other and find peace? So thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if I'm hearing you correctly, it's that recognition is a component of engagement and employee well-being, but it's also a two-way street. You are recognizing the employees are recognizing you as well as a leader who is creating those safe spaces and making those conversations happen. And that is a form of recognition as well. Danae, I didn't want to leave you out of this, because I know that you probably have a hybrid workforce and is to a certain extent as well.
Yeah. So, I agree with, and we're doing a lot of what the other folks have talked about. So I'll just kind of speak a little bit to some of the nuances that we've seen and what we're doing. We are a heavily franchised organization. So from a Pizza Hut perspective in the field, Pizza Hut US doesn't own a ton of them. We're heavily franchised. So it's working very closely with our franchisees. And so I know a lot of them are doing pulse surveys to their team members to make sure that they're feeling safe from a COVID perspective, but then also feeling safe and seen and heard from everything else that's going on, in the world today. And so we've actually started doing a lot of panels and reaching out to folks out in the field to share their stories and let us know how that they're feeling. And that's been remarkable. The stories that we've heard from the field. Sometimes at corporate, you lose that connection sometimes. And so just hearing from our restaurant team members and how they're doing and how they're feeling and what support they need from us at corporate to be able to do their job and to feel good and to feel safe and to feel recognized. But just giving them a platform has been really great. We actually started something called Pizza Hut Proud on our Facebook. So it's a closed Facebook group where team members are able to join and they recognize each other and what they're going through. I mean, we have a lot of students that work for us, and so they missed high school graduations or college graduations, or they have children that they're trying to homeschool as they're working part-time jobs or full-time jobs. And so to see the recognition that they gave each other, to give them that platform to connect across franchisees and across locations. A lot of us at corporate are on that page too, just because when we're feeling down, it's the best page to go to see how they are taking care of each other. I mean, we have restaurant managers that were doing full-blown graduation ceremonies where they made caps and gowns out of pizza board, pizza box hats, and it was amazing. And so just being able to see that and really give just a platform for our restaurants to share ideas on how they're recognizing their team members and what's going on in their lives, I think has been really impactful. And that Facebook page, it's a free resource. And we're like, God, why didn't we have this before? It's so great. And they just start their own challenges on stuffed crust challenge and who can make the best pizza. I mean, it's amazing. So I'll keep it there, but just that form of recognition and that peer-to-peer across franchisees and across boards has been really exceptional to see.
I'm just I just need to break away for one moment. This is a good thread, and I have a follow-up question, but we need to do our station identification because we're at the 30-minute mark. So I'd like to invite Steve to come back on.
Thanks, Lydia. This has been fascinating, and I'd like to just remind anyone joining our webinar in midstream that we're from day one. We're exploring employee recognition and why it's more important than ever. Our sponsors are Lumapps, Peakon, and Reflektive. As a reminder, you can submit your questions at any time, and we will answer as many as we can during the Q&A session. I already have seen some. There's one about how do you recognize introverts versus extroverts? And I was reading a story about that very topic in the Wall Street Journal this week. So it's on people's minds. So with no further ado, back to you, Lydia.
Thank you. So Sean, you were about to say something, and Renee had her finger on the button too. So I'll let you two go before I move on to the next question.
Yeah, I just wanted to recognize something that Danae said, that the recognition, the peer-to-peer recognition and that kind of open space has ripple effects out to the organization, to the people who weren't directly recognized, but are kind of lifted up to see those conversations happening. And the fact that you turn there as a pick-me-up in the day really speaks to the effect of these kinds of programs on an organizational culture.
I was going to add, it sounds like a really fantastic forum, the Pizza Hut Proud on Facebook. And I know at Honeywell, we have a Yammer, portal, kind of an internal version of that where you're creating that. And at the heart, what that is that peer-to-peer recognition. And it's that culture that's okay and that's fun. I was also thinking about how, while we wouldn't wish, COVID on anyone and certainly hope and wish that this never happened, what are some of the things that are happening now that you almost wonder, why weren't we doing these all along? When someone's graduating at your, in your organization or maybe achieving their MBA, why aren't you having a fun, crazy graduation party? We have my boss's birthday's tomorrow. And so there's a fun Zoom call that's kind of happening right now where we're all going to wear a funny hat. Don't tell him if you know who he is on the line, and just kind of celebrate that. And, we're taking these moments virtually and, we're making a bigger deal out of life right now. And peers, life events, birthdays, these things don't cost anything. And yet they really could lift somebody up. And so that's one of the things I'm going to challenge myself on is, what's going to stick, what's worked that we've learned through this that you should always be celebrating, because it doesn't cost anything to, share, send someone an e-card through maybe your internal Bravo system, saying, I heard you just bought a new house, congratulations. Or, yep, you just finished your degree. That's fantastic. Maybe we can't give them any money for it. Budgets are tight, maybe there's not even an ability to give them a gift card. I know that there's, really, really tight resources right now, but you can still celebrate in ways that maybe this COVID environment highlights should have been happening all along.
Well, I want to follow on this thread a little bit more, and I'm glad Danae brought up the Facebook page, because that is a peer-to-peer type thing. And I'm just wondering, of course, it's great to get recognized by a manager or a higher up, but the peer-to-peer thing seems to really resonate with people. It's like, when the person working next to you recognizes you, it's almost, almost better in a way than getting a manager's recognition. So what are you all doing to encourage people to do more of that? Just on a really basic level, I know that, at some of the organizations that I've worked for, we've had sort of internal kudos pages, and we were specifically told, think about someone whose work you really admire and just write a couple of sentences. Again, it's free, it's easy to do, but somebody's got to give you the nudge. So what are you all doing to give those nudges and make that happen?
Yeah, so, I said earlier, I'm really proud of Pizza Hut and kind of the strong recognition culture we have across really the entire Yum family. But I think how we do it and kind of ingrain people from the beginning is a really fun way. So when you're a new hire, you go through our culture by the slice, which is just a full day where you are getting ingrained and indoctrinated into the Pizza Hut and Yum culture and what that means. And a piece of it is recognition and like how powerful it is, and whether it's little recognition or big recognition. So everybody at Yum, we actually have your own personal recognition award. And so during that class, you're asked to think about like, what would that award be? So it's not just these personal recognition awards are coming from, you know, the CEO and the CFO, though they do have them. We all have little tokens that are our personal recognition that have stories behind it. So if you walk through our office, assuming we ever all get back into the office, you'll see everybody's desks and offices that are full of, you know, what seem like knickknacks or little toys or just randomness. And they're usually tied to recognition and stories behind them. So like an example is, you know, our CFO, his is like a yellow hard hat with one of those lights on it, and it's the Blinding Insight Award. Right. And then you have people like me where mine is a little bit more vague. So I can kind of personalize it a bit, but it's an owl. So it can kind of ties into, you know, wisdom and all of that. And I get little owl knickknacks for people, and it could be an owl pencil or, you know, sticker or whatever it is. But I think kind of ingraining it and letting people know that it's part of the company and who we are, and have fun with it. And then that way, again, some of the recognition is in meetings, but sometimes it's just leaving a recognition card with a little, like I leave the 100 grand candy bars is my other thing that's just like a little bit more casual, that I just randomly would leave it on people's desk with little notes like, if I had 100 grand to give you, I would, but thanks for what you do. So I think it's that type of thing, and just really letting people know that it's comfortable, and letting leaders know too that it's like it's expected. Like we have to recognize our folks and to make it fun.
Someone else want to add what they do to encourage that kind of peer-to-peer?
I think I'm not very active on social network for my work. So what we have done in lieu of that is that we always have an annual retreat where we take highly productive people out of the country, Panama City or somewhere else. So this year, everybody was skeptical that because of the situation, maybe we will not be recognized, we will not be taken outside. So what we have done internally is to let them know, all the people that are productive and others, that we are still thinking about their recognition, and we are still thinking about a summit. It may not happen this year, but if it happens next year, we'll make sure that it's rewarded on a double basis. We add some component to it. So people understand the company is very careful in recognizing what they're doing, even in these tough times. I think that message goes a long way. So people who are going to join the summit for the first time feel motivated that my work is being recognized, and it's possible I may not be able to go to Mexico this year, but I think I'll be there next year. So we will use the data that we collect this year to include in the following year. On a personal level, we see a little thing from any of the colleagues, we always recognize it.
I might share, having been called on to help organizations begin to create these kinds of cultures if they're not existing already. That's often a very challenging situation for organizations. Some of the things Danae specifically mentioned, making it part of the onboarding process, so it is normalized from day one. That this is how this is how we work. The other thing that can be very important is creating a champion program around an initiative like this. So if you can find folks across the organization to say, you know, we'd like to make you part of beginning a recognition program, to act as model citizens who show the behaviors that we want the rest of the organization to adopt. So they might be the early ones, you know, creating, giving a shout out on a public page, or if somebody else gives their first shout out, making sure they like it. So we reward and incentivize that behavior. And then of course, we want buy-in from leadership, and even encouraging leaders to just weigh in. So, you know, yes, there are top-down formal kinds of recognition programs, but a leader commenting on or liking, you know, a peer-to-peer recognition suddenly gives that, you know, you feel seen. You know, somebody high up saw that my colleague recognized the outstanding work I did. A last tip I'd share is I've seen organizations do a very smart thing of tying some of these recognition to their corporate values. So major car rental agency I worked with, one of their core values is outstanding customer service, and created a peer recognition page around that. And that really helps bring the corporate values off of the poster on the wall and gives them a home where people can share and engage around them as part of their lived experience of doing their work, and really helps make it real in your organization.
I can chime in. So at for us, actually, every 2 weeks, we release what is called Care News, where it's digital, and it's where we list updates, what's happening around Care New England, and also we include profiles on people who have either been on the news with their work or have done something small in the organization or big, but just that way people get recognized for what's going on. And then in addition to that, just in general, we just try to facilitate a culture of communication. And oftentimes when we communicate with each other, it's always to say something negative, but it's catching somebody that's doing something positive and saying, hey, congratulations, and giving a compliment. I have found that for some reason it's difficult to give compliments for whatever reason. And I think when we give a compliment, we're not losing anything. We're pouring into somebody else, and that should make us feel better. So really, really trying to help all of us to say, you know what, we're on the same page, we're on the same team. So if we're encouraging, then we're all going to win in the end. So those are two things that we try to keep doing on a regular basis.
So I think I've agreed with a lot of different things that have been said here. Sean, as you started mentioning the corporate values, I thought of perhaps a different way of looking at this. So how do you create that peer-to-peer recognition? If you take a step back and you think about, well, what are the expectations that you've laid out for your employees and your leaders? I imagine that Honeywell is similar to many of your organizations where we measure performance not only based on the results that you receive, but how you get those results and your behaviors. And so there are a set of behaviors that we lift up and share that these are our values. These are the types of things that are important to us. And there are a couple of those values that are at the heart of recognition, inspiring greatness and becoming your best. And I think sometimes people see that and say, oh, inspiration, inspiring greatness, I have to be a big leader to do that. I have to have direct reports to do that. And so organizationally, you have to spend a little bit of time appealing to the individual contributor, appealing to the engineer that is working on a project, the project manager that doesn't have any direct reports, but is navigating a large team anyways. The financial analyst who is, crunching the numbers and presenting them every once in a while. You have to relate to them and say, your contribution and the way you can inspire others, that's going to make a difference to our culture. And actually, oh, by the way, we're going to hold you accountable for it. If we're going to give you performance ratings and drive a high performance culture, we're going to expect that of you. And so you got to give them tools to do it. You got to kind of lift it up. You got to make it comfortable. You got to make it fun. But perhaps a different way of looking at it as kind of pull it back and say, make it a part of the expectations of your senior leadership, your management, and all the way down to the line level employee, that recognition and bringing others along and celebration is a part of what performance looks like at your organization.
I want to follow that on with talking about individuals, because I think that, it's really easy to recognize a high performer. It's also really easy to recognize somebody who may need some extra help. So you've got like the top and the bottom that really get all of the attention, but then the people who are just kind of in the middle, maybe have potential, don't necessarily get recognized all too often. That's kind of the spot where it's tough to engage. So I guess my question to you all is twofold: is how do you recognize that middle level performer? And then can you offer perhaps some career development or coaching as a way to recognize and reward those employees too, even if they're not, I guess some organizations call them high pose. I've heard that term batted around. So again, question for all of you: what do you do with that middle grade of people?
This is Pramod. I think what we have done in the past is address the whole team and find out something about everybody that stands out. So rather than just say this is a top performer or this is somebody who is a mentee is coming up and has high promise, what I do is I try to find good things that everybody has done. If somebody's done a good mentorship, somebody's cultivated one client, may not be at the top level, but you always mention that. So I think those are the kind of things where individuals, when they hear their name being mentioned and they feel that something that they have done is being recognized in a team environment, I think it means a lot. Then what we do as a company is where everybody qualifies, we have employee kids scholarship program. So that is irrespective of anybody's performance. That's something that we always give to our employees. We ask them to participate in that. So anybody who's a part of the company gets to apply for the kids scholarship, give it to them. And the other things are we always create a mentor-mentee relationship. What I do in my team is I bring the two people together. And when they do things together, then we have one more reason to brag about what they've done together. So basically, you don't want to leave somebody behind, because if it's he or she is a part of your team, then you have to mention them. When I was teaching, I always had a criteria of giving the lowest grade to the whole team. So if somebody got a C, irrespective of if everybody else had an A, they got a C. So then everybody brought that C up to an A. So we also create an environment of improvement within the team and self-mentoring and mentoring by their peers. That helps. And I've seen that work in many situations.
I think I certainly appreciate that. And I can see how that can be very motivating. My mind started going in a little bit of a different direction. You know, I think sometimes to drive a really high performing team and a high performance culture, you have to embrace that you may differentially invest in your higher performers and be okay with that. And recognize that, yeah, we do tend to spend time on our highest performing employees and we want to lift them up and make sure that they have everything they need, and potentially use more of our tools in our recognition toolbox for them. We also need to be laser focused on upgrading the talent of our lower performers, because that's actually a way to recognize the people that are trying really hard, right? Because if they have this weight on their back trying to carry a team member and they don't see you trying to address that, that's a way for you to show them that you value them, because the other person that's not cutting it is going to be addressed. But in, you know, the middle crew, you know, there's got to be a variety of tactics that you can take for the strong, consistent performers. The bar keeps getting raised. So if they keep raising their performance to that high bar, I mean, that's pretty strong too. One of the things that we've done at Honeywell is we've introduced the concept of the stay interview. You might hear often about the exit interview, right? When someone leaves the organization and, you know, whether it's HR or the leaders meet with them and say, why did you leave? And oftentimes they could be pretty honest, you know, sometimes they won't be, sometimes they would be. But that's spending a lot of time on people that have already left. What about the people who are currently loyal to you and are currently here, but they actually might be starting to think about leaving? What are you going to learn about them? And so we've, in some pockets of the organization, have deployed that end-to-end, HiPods or hypos, whatever the term is, you know, yes, the lower performers, but everybody in the middle, and have a one-on-one interview where you talk to them. Why are you here? What excites you to come to work every day? You know, am I recognizing you the right way? What does recognition look like for you? What might entice you to leave? What can I do differently as a manager? Do you have any feedback for me? Engage in what could be just a 20 to 30 minute conversation to, again, to the point that Dionne had made earlier, to help them feel seen, to help you understand what makes them tick. You know, if they're an introvert and you're an extrovert, you know, hearing directly from them is going to feel different. It's not going to be your go-to tactics because it's not what you would want, but it's what they would want. And so really focusing in on what would make people stay and recognize that is a potential way that you could focus on that middle group.
I agree with you, but I think what I feel is that there is no place for mediocrity on my team. I feel everybody's on a journey, and then I create a threshold value beyond which everybody's a high performer in some category. So I think if you are mentoring them and guiding them to come to a certain level of exceptional performance, this journey has to be important and has to be meaningful. If they're not performing, then they don't belong on your team.
Sure,
so,
right.
So I always believe that either you are there and you're getting there. So that's how I view my team.
I kind of echo that. I also think that I think that anybody can be a star with the right opportunities and the right support and the right effort, and helping them identify what their, everyone has a gift, and identify, okay, what is their internal gift? What is their, admittedly, I am awful at technology. So, but I can read and write very well. So I think it's a matter of identifying what everyone's strengths is. And actually, I guess because as a former high school teacher, I actually I always got excited by the students that were kind of in that middle. When people are high performer, you're a high performer, so that's expectation. If you're a low performer, the only way you have is up. But it's that middle group and helping them to stimulate them to move up and to find that gift. I mean, I think that's where it's really rewarding. And then I think as a manager, we should be encouraging people and helping them to identify where they have their successes, because not everyone's going to be the best. There's tiers, but nonetheless, it's what is the best for that particular person, and celebrating that person for whatever level they were able to get to. And I think that's important, and that goes back to just the recognition and just making sure that I recognize you for your strengths and also your limitations, but I still value you regardless of where you are and where you land.
I'm thinking as well about another middle, and that's sometimes the middle management layer within the organization, where responsibility is a little more diffused and therefore performance isn't as easily identified necessarily, because you're managing multiple teams or multiple initiatives, and you're supporting a dedicated team that really executes against that. And so I think that's an important population to provide mentorship, and even peer mentorship. Technique I've seen a lot is, as folks become managers, to put them in a dedicated area together. Again, I'm thinking of the digital workplace, but to give them a place where they can kind of share what their challenges are, receive dedicated mentorship, perhaps from human resources around management techniques and additional resources that they might need that they haven't had to think about before, and creating a safe area where they can really be candid with each other about what they're trying, what they're struggling with, and those sorts of things. And then, trying to find ways to bring those successes out and recognize them a little more publicly than just in the peer mentoring group.
And I'll just add one quick thing, because I think the panel's done a great job at kind of identifying the different areas. I think this is one part in recognition, though, too, that the kind of more formal side can be addressed, like in the IDPs, right? So in the individual development plans, we do them annually, kind of at that halfway mark. And, if they're a middle performer, like, what is it going to take to get them that up? Like, what's that one unlock, right? They're here with this one thing that they can focus on. Don't give them a barrage of things, but one thing that they can focus on. That's their development goal. And then putting a really strong plan in place. Like, this is what you're going to do balance of the year, but making the development goal short and sweet and to the point where it's like their mantra. It could be speak up in meetings, whatever that is, but something that's short and easy to quickly articulate, doesn't need a lot of explanation. And then we share those goals with the broader team so that they get recognized for doing things to help them get there. Hey, you did a really great job. I know your thing is being able to visually present your work and your thoughts, and you nailed that PowerPoint presentation yesterday. And so sharing your IDP goals with those, with all levels, but I think that's really where those middle performers, and working to get them to that next level. And then next year, let's get it a little bit higher and continue to kind of build on that spectrum.
So building on this, I'm thinking about the conversations that accompany these recognitions, and something that I don't personally subscribe to, but I hear that a lot of people use it, is when giving feedback, you do the sandwich method. So if you have, something that may not be so positive, you're gonna stick it in between the bread of saying positive things. You're mostly smiling, all of you, so you've all heard about this. So what's a good way to give recognition feedback that isn't just boilerplate? Do you believe in the sandwich? Do you have another strategy? Where do you take this?
I can start with that. So years ago, when I was providing feedback, I came up with 3 things: start, stop, continue. So when I'm meeting with someone, I would love for you to start doing this. I'd love for you to stop doing this and continue doing this. And I find that people appreciate it. And of course, timing and tone is extremely important. But I think people are, especially as adults, I think we should be open to feedback. and we should be open to constructive criticism. And of course, if it's brought to the person, obviously with the greatest of intentions and keeping their self-esteem intact, I think you can be direct and say, you know, this is not working. And so I've been using that approach, and I find it's been helpful, and it's unequivocal. Because the other piece is, if, for example, the feedback is a little wishy-washy and someone's doing something that needs to actually stop, then that can lead into other things. And so if someone needs to stop doing something and they continue, then that maybe the next step is they go on a PIP, a professional improvement plan or something, a personal improvement plan. So it's important to be clear, especially as a manager. Otherwise, you can get into trouble when you have to do something, unfortunately.
And I also feel the same way. What I do is I'm very open with my input to my team. If there is something I don't want to continue, I openly tell them that this is something that's not acceptable, in a very nice way, but in a firm way. But if there are things that I can help them with, I offer my help. For example, if they are not able to be successful in something they're trying to do, I'll offer them, I can be on the phone call with you, with the client. I can provide this, I can go on a visit with you. So things that I don't want to happen, I ask them to stop right then, but things that can be improved with my intervention, I offer my help so they don't feel left out. This is how I handle. I'm pretty open, because I think one of the qualities of the leadership to be transparent and be very responsible in your feedback. If you don't tell them this is something that cannot be accepted, then they will stop doing it. But you have to say that in a very respectful and a firm way.
Yeah, I think, you know, people are going to respond to feedback if they fundamentally believe that you are coming from a good place, that your intentions to give them that feedback and recognition is positive, and also that you've got the credibility that you know what the heck you're talking about. And so, you know, while the sandwich technique, kind of good, bad, good, I think that's always helpful. People don't like to just like walk into a meeting and just get slammed with a bunch of, you know, constructive feedback. At the heart of it, it's just got to be timely. You know, you got to tell somebody if something happens as quickly as possible. And I think the tactic that I would use that I use more often, that's more important to me than the sandwich technique, is just specific, right? Specific feedback, helping them understand exactly what they did, exactly what the impact was, but then most importantly, the pause. Stop talking, allow the person to react and respond, and then engage in a dialogue with them about what they think about that feedback. Is it something that they're gonna accept? Is it something that they're struggling with? Is it something that they want to immediately jump to an action plan on how they're gonna improve? And then, you know, since this is talking about recognition, I mean, there's probably a whole nother webinar on feedback, right? But, you know, it's okay if sometimes you reach out to someone and you're just giving them critical feedback, if you're also sometimes just reaching out to them to only give them positive feedback. And if you've got that rapport and you're being intentional about that, then ultimately both of those should be well received from, you know, our professional employees that, you know, that we're working with.
I think another tactic is a dialogue around how the employee thinks something went. Oftentimes, I think many of us know when we just finished a project or something like that, what did not go well. And so oftentimes that feedback might not come as a surprise. And if you can elicit that from them and know that they recognize you know, an area for improvement, then partner with them in what's going to work for them to help change that. They may already have ideas. And I think if you open that door, putting my change management hat on, you're going to get somebody who's bought into the solution more than if it's a directive of, but it's certainly one of many, you know, ways of providing feedback and mentoring.
Danae, did you want to add anything?
You know, again, I agree with a lot that was said, especially with Renee's, is timeliness. And we let our managers know, like, be comfortable in the silence, like, you know, give them time to process, and you don't have to, like, you know, as soon as there's any kind of silence, jump back in and start talking. Be comfortable in the silence. And, you know, for those line managers who may be uncomfortable, you know, there's nothing wrong with a good old-fashioned role playing. You know, how do you anticipate that they're going to react? If they react this way, how are you going to approach the conversation? If they react this way, how are you going to approach it? Just to get the folks giving feedback more comfortable.
And Danae, I just want to accentuate, I was looking at the questions, and there was someone that had said, you know, how do you help managers have this come across as genuine instead of it feeling like a check the box activity, whether it's recognition or the stay interviews that I was mentioning. And I think you said it, right? You've got to provide the space for managers to practice so that they can, you know, with their HR partner, with their manager, whomever's available to them, so that when they actually approach the manager or the employee and have those conversations, they're not struggling through the process. They're just able to speak from the heart because they know the process. And ultimately, then I think it comes across as more genuine.
I also wanted to say that there are certain behaviors that need immediate attention, because how you behave and how you respond to what has been taught, what needs to be said as a feedback, affects other people. So they're also looking at you as a leader. What are you going to do about it? So I've had situations where I need to say, stop it right now, like today. So because if it has HR implications or other implications, that needs to stop right then. And other things where I can help them grow, then you help them. But certain things need to be stopped almost immediately.
We're going to take a short break for another station ID before we roll it over to do our audience Q&A. Steve?
Thanks, Lydia. Thank you to everyone who's participating in our From Day One webinar on employee recognition, and to our sponsors, Lumapps, Peakon, and Reflektive. At this point, Lydia will start taking questions from the audience, and there's quite a few good ones. Thanks, Lydia.
So one of the first ones is really interesting because I've been hearing this in doing my reporting work, certainly from other organizations. One of the attendees is asking, I have an employee that basically refuses to use video, not sure what to think of this. It's hard to be seen when you can't be seen. So what would you recommend for someone to encourage someone to turn on their video?
I'll give them the flexibility. I mean, these are tough times. If I can hear them, if they can participate fully through audio. I mean, I don't have a bad hair day, so that's a good thing for me. But I think if somebody has some things to against coming on the video, to me, it's not a big deal unless and until there's an issue that's associated with it.
I like to echo that too, because again, we don't know. Someone could be living in a one-bedroom apartment with 6 other people. They may not be happy with how the surroundings look. There's a myriad of things that could be going on. So I think as long as that person shows up, then I think we should honor what they want to do.
Exactly.
I would also draw attention that, you know, video in real time is just one mode of communication, and many of us are comfortable or, you know, excel in different modes. And, you know, I saw some questions coming in and mention of introversion versus extroversion. You know, that these are dynamics that are at play with individual participation in the workplace. And that's why I like having a variety of technologies and modes of communication. You know, some people are expert at reacting with an animated GIF, and they can convey so much, and that's how they connect with the team. And it's you know, it's a vibrant part of some organizations' cultures. Some are not, you know, technophiles and are happy to hop on a call, and that's their preferred mode of communication. But, you know, providing a variety of tools and looking to see how, you know, how can we foster the overall culture that we want of participation and engagement, and just make sure that there are different ways to engage that.
Yeah, I do want to tackle the introvert versus extrovert question, because I think that it's been a challenging time for extroverts in particular, myself included, because I am a raging extrovert. Hard to be so remote, virtual. And so how do you cater recognition to those different personality types? So, you know, following on what Sean said, does anyone have anything else to add to that?
I think this is a good opportunity for you to engage with that person and try to hear from them what, you know, even just our opening question, right? What was an example of a time where you really felt appreciated? How are things going on a daily basis? You know, what are the things that are happening right now in our workplace that are contributing to your satisfaction? And what are the things, let's talk, you know, what are the things that are going on right now that are bringing your energy level way down, and you know, try to have that candid conversation with them. The other thing I would say is, I think we've mentioned the 5 love languages. It's kind of maybe, what is it, taboo to say love language at work, but if you think at the core of what those are, and I read that book and it was fascinating, you know, whether it's words of affirmation or acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, or maybe not so much physical touch, but those have very different principles, and they pull on a person's heartstrings in very different ways. You know, maybe what that person wants is an extra, you know, afternoon off, or maybe they want a one-on-one with somebody that's really impactful to them, but not, you know, these big team meetings that, you know, where you could recognize them in those forums, but they want to spend a little bit of time with someone they admire in the organization from a mentorship standpoint. You know, I would say, you know, what I've realized is that as like the farthest E extrovert that you could possibly be on the scale, it's not helpful for me to try to figure out what the I wants. I've got to ask. We've got to have that open dialogue, and I need help. And so as long as you can kind of set the tone that you need that help, then hopefully people will be open with you about those different tactics that you could take.
So this question actually reminds me of how different I am from my husband. I'm like you, Lydia. I'm like, it doesn't matter what time of the day it is, and I drive him crazy. He's an introvert. Sorry, and it's interesting that these types of conversations, I get my energy from people, and he feels completely drained. So I'm reminded of many times since this whole thing has happened where he's had to be on calls like this, and it's like, oh, it's a lot for him to have to do it. I think that's the beauty of diversity. We're all very different. And in terms of a manager, like in my consulting days, I heard sometimes there are managers that will say, well, that person's just reticent, who cares, or that person doesn't matter. But we have to find a way to reach that person. And so if we're having a meeting and everyone, and why not send out a question to other people before the meeting and say, hey, you know, we're going to have this meeting about this topic, and I want everyone to come with your opinion or your answer and be ready to speak. And I find that when people get that preparation and they're allowed to have the opportunity to speak, then they know, and they're able to kind of come out of their shell a little more. So, but at the same time, it's also recognizing that not everybody has a big mouth like me. So that's okay.
Dionne, I like that you called out. I was thinking about folks who thrive on synchronous communication and face-to-face, and those who are more comfortable taking a beat and then responding, you know, when they've had a chance to collect their thoughts. And you described a way of conducting a face-to-face meeting where there's some preparation for forethought and folks aren't having to improvise or those sorts of things. So, you know, these are all, you know, there's a myriad ways that we could structure these kinds of, you know, meetings or feedback programs, or and the examples that Renee and Danae have provided, just how creative we can be as we put together these reward programs. And I think that experimentation and seeing what catches and what works in your organization and moves it in the direction you want to is how we should be thinking about these things.
I also feel that if you have a diverse team, there's a place for people who are extroverted and there's a place for people who are introverted. And if they have survived your team so far, COVID is not going to change them. And then not coming on the video could have 100 reasons. Like today, my son and my daughter-in-law are working downstairs in the office, so I had to come to my desk in my bedroom. And I was thinking, my God, is the environment suitable? Because I couldn't change the background screen. So there could be 100 reasons. Like Dionne said, people may be living in one bedroom apartment, maybe their environment has a small kid at the background. So I think that's not a big deal. But I think if they have functioned on your team in their respective roles previously, they're fine now, whether they come on the video or not.
I wanted to address this one question. It's interesting because we have been talking about individual recognition. Janet is asking, I work in fire EMS service. Do any of you have team recognition programs or suggestions for cultures where the work really depends on the performance of the team, individuals working together in nearly every instance to achieve an outcome? So we hadn't really talked about team recognition as a whole. So let's dive back into that a little bit.
We have that in our company. We will look at the account that has done an exceptional job in the past 1 year, and then we will recognize the whole team for doing an outstanding job. And we will not even mention the leadership on that team. We'll just say this team has done an outstanding job. So the pride and ownership for every member of the team is displayed on stage. And we will do that for 2, 3, or 4 major initiatives. And people take it very seriously and they feel rewarded.
I'd agree. I'd say we have project team recognition. That's typically a little bit bigger and done at like our all company meetings because you're recognizing kind of larger groups. The one call out that we always look at is just making sure it's a well-defined team that you're recognizing, or it can be backfired if you're not including somebody who felt like they were on that team, or they did some work and they weren't part of the team recognized, right? Like sometimes in project teams, there's some folks that may not, exactly. They're like, oh, well, I should have been, so you just have to be careful. But I think project is great. And it also helps with those introverts because it's not them, it's part of a team, and it shows the value of teamwork that I think most companies stress the importance of all the time. So we should be able to showcase those who are working really well as a team and those are that are collaborating across functions.
I think another important part of team recognition is calling out how those different individual contributors and perhaps differentiated expertise came together. So what is it, how did they come together? How did they execute, across expertise to really serve a customer, deliver a product, whatever it may be. Because I think that's what's unique about team recognition as opposed to individual contributor is how do we make the whole more than the sum of the parts and what's brought to bear there so that can be a model for other teams.
Does anyone want to add anything else? I can move on to the next question, which is from Rabina, who says, we have a diverse group of employees, folks hired from college to senior level folks. We have suggested various virtual games and options for employee engagement, especially during COVID, but we don't get the good response for participation. How can we improve employee involvement? Someone want to take this one on?
Sure. I mean, the first thing that I thought of, and obviously, armchair quarterback to your personal situation, so I acknowledge that, but you're selling something that people aren't buying. So, you might not have your pulse on kind of what your customer wants. And I would encourage you to take a step back and perhaps maybe talk to a few people who are, key influencers. There's always those employees that if you can get them on board with something, then they bring a bunch of people with them, whether, that's a change management, tactic or just people that inspire and create your culture. And so, talk to a few folks that you think are more kind of in touch with the organization. Perhaps use some of them to coordinate and set up an event instead of it being set up by a different, party, whether HR sets it up or management sets it up. Give them some funding and give them some, rein to do something themselves so that it feels a bit more organic. And it may be something that's you never even thought of, but if it's a little bit more catered to the actual interests of the employee group. But the other thing I'd say is also celebrate the fact that if you even had, 10, 15 people come, that's okay. You made a difference to those 10 or 15 people, and different things are going to be impactful for different employees. We've talked about that all day here. So you might not want to stop what you're doing, but you might also want to pivot and try to see if you can put different things in place for the people who are not attending.
Yeah, and related to that, I think too, just kind of appreciate the timing sometimes. Like we all have it. I can speak for myself, like Zoom call fatigue is a thing. Like whenever I'm on meetings all day, it's like I love my coworkers, I love my friends. When this whole thing started, I was on virtual happy hours like 4 days a week. I'm like, I have not had this much wine ever, if we're being honest. And it was fun. And I was like, I hope this virtual happy hour, like this goes on post-COVID. I'm seeing college friends, I'm seeing friends from all over the country. We were doing virtual happy hours, work-related, once a week, and like we were all in. And you've got to understand, like sometimes it's just the ebbs and flows. Like someday, like, I'm just burnt out. It's been probably a month since my last virtual happy hour. So I think understanding that too, and like where you are as an organization in that. And so not, so for us, we just decided to slow it down. We're like, okay, this is too much. We're fatigued. Once a month now, we'll try to do something, and we rotate around, who's planning it, and folks share ideas on like, hey, what do you want to do? We've done, match your childhood photo to you, and we've done trivia and all kinds of fun stuff. But I think sometimes it's, to Renee's point, asking folks, like, don't feel like you need to come up with the ideas. Asking folks on what are you doing? What's your family members doing? What are you doing in your friend groups? Like tapping into all of those resources, but understanding like sometimes people are just tired, and we have to understand that too. We're a lot further in than I think most of us thought we would be when this all started.
Yeah,
and I was going to
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to share that the other question that came to mind was, were the people that were going to be expected to participate, were they involved in the planning? Because oftentimes you're not going to participate in something that you've had nothing to do with. If it feels like it's been prescribed or kind of put upon, then people are less likely to want to participate. So I think it's always great to have all the stakeholders involved and get input, and be willing to also make adjustments where necessary and pivot where you need to in order to make sure you get the biggest scope of people in attendance.
I was going to say that, it's a good thing that every generation, whether it's millennials or X generation or Z generation, they all can make a positive contribution and make a team work. But when it comes to games and Zoom, people are at a different position in their own lives. They have their own stresses. A millennial may not have that many family obligations as somebody who's in their 40s and 50s is. So I think coming to a game, I think somebody said that if you get 15, 20, it's a good thing. Do not expect everybody to join in. First of all, they're not fascinated or excited by participating in a game show. So they have something to worry about. Their spouse just lost a job. Their kid is not going to school. The babysitter is not coming. So I think people are dealing with this situation in a very different way. So for everybody to fit into a one form, it's just not possible and should not be expected. My suggestion to that person would be have a variety of activities that excite different sets of people. That's the beauty of diversity. The diversity of games, diversity of activities, and hopefully you'll be able to get a part of each generation into those activities.
in addition to Zoom fatigue being a real thing, I think even before COVID, a lot of workplaces would have these game nights or special happy hours, or they, start a softball league or something. But some employees are always going to view that as mandatory fun. And so you just have to really, I think about what the entire organization looks like, and maybe what's mandatory fun for one group isn't mandatory fun for another group. But I do want to go back to a question that we sort of touched on. Eve is asking, at my organization of over 18,000 employees, funding for employee recognition programming has been significantly impacted by COVID. Do you have any creative recommendations for wide-reaching recognition initiatives that are low or no cost? And Danae was talking about the Facebook page, and we did touch on some other things, but are there things that are creative ways other than, doing a Zoom meeting and recognizing people in turn?
Well, I think
I would just suggest social. Yeah, go ahead, please. I'm sorry.
So, you got to start getting creative, right? And I think, celebrating life events, whether you're setting up a phone call or you're using any kind of like e-card platform that you might have. We, never underestimate the power of an email from a senior leader thanking somebody for their hard work on a project, or a phone call. You could, reach out to a leader and say, here's the cell phone number of my employee. They really could use a phone call to acknowledge a particular personal or professional situation. I've actually started to, I have a big stack of note cards, and I guess in HR, you've got connections to know the addresses of your team, but halfway through this, it was real tough, right, guys? I mean, I guess we're not halfway, but there was a time where we were like, oh, this is going to happen for like another 30 days. And I started writing personal notes and mailing them to my employees to make sure that they knew how much I appreciated them. You know, funny GIFs, I think, was mentioned, you know, and just continuing, you know, when you see something that makes you feel good, then try that on someone else. But most importantly, I think just don't stop, you know, it's going to be far more costly for you to not take advantage of those kind of low cost recognition than it would be for you to do the low to no cost recognitions, even if you know that it is not as impactful as giving somebody a $500, you know, cash bonus prize, you know. Just don't get caught up in that. Get caught up in, you know, the fact that you're able to do something. We have non-monetary e-cards right now, and we have a little bit of a competition going on who can send the most, because it's a new behavior that you got to learn to go in and send those things. And yeah, of course it would be better than, or it would be better to receive $100 and go out to dinner. But some of the research our predictive analytics team and compensation and benefits team has shared is that, you know, receiving approximately 6 non-monetary, you know, forms of recognition brings the same joy and excitement to someone as a monetary piece of recognition. And so let's go, you know, keep the volume up, keep it going, and keep that spirit of recognition up for no cost.
And most of us can't go out to dinner right now anyway, so it's a moot point, right? Pramod,
Exactly.
did you want to add something?
I just want to say we have more than 18,500 employees. So I applaud the fact that the company that they're talking about is more focused on having people keep their jobs than to worry about employee recognition right now. So my recommendation would be to get engaged in employee recognition activities that don't cost anything, because you want to use every penny the company has to sustain jobs and to keep jobs so people can be paid and they can continue with their lives. I think their social media is one aspect. I've started discussion threads where people feel empowered by giving input. I have started birthdays and anniversaries recognitions. So do something that doesn't involve any money, because I think corporations are going through a tough period, and I would rather have them keep jobs than to spend money elsewhere.
I keep hearing these variety of clever things that people can do that are no cost. There are also public ways to recognize. I believe LinkedIn now has a recognition of a way that you can provide recognition out to that person's public network that's not just behind the corporate wall, but some public recognition. Of course, you can create opportunities for one-on-ones or speaking opportunities at forums like this. You know, figuring out what your employees are trying to achieve professionally and seeing what you can do to create those opportunities as a form of recognition can be no cost as well. A point that I keep thinking about, though, is, you know, these are great programs that we can put in place, but I'm also thinking about how can organizations put in place cultures of recognition that are part of the way that they do business, that it's part of a process of organization. It becomes an organizational competence, that it's part of how projects are, you know, kicked off or closed out, that there might be, you know, here's what went well, and even opportunities for improvement, lessons learned out of that project. So it's both, you know, recognition for individual contributions, and then, you know, ways that when we do the next project, we're going to try to tweak this or change that to help that go more smoothly for the customer. I'm just interested in how can we build those into how the organization does business.
And then kind of in addition, just a few things that I know, you know, we've done or I've seen successful in other orgs, that is really, you know, leaning into the communication channels you already have, or the tools you may already have that aren't typically used for recognition, but can you get creative in a way to utilize those, right? So if you typically send out employee newsletters that are more informational, can you add some fun into there? Can you have a recognition corner? Can we embrace that we're now all virtual? And so, you know, have coffee chats with executives where it's an invite only, and they, you know, it's not limited to only 10 people because it's virtual. You know, we used to have coffee chats that we would limit to 10, 15 people. You know, now we can have 40, 45 people on that call on any given time. Our coffee chats aren't, invitation only, but I've heard those with the larger organizations that the spots are more coveted, that they make it an invite only, and it's a way to recognize folks and gives them some exposure that doesn't have that cost other than the executive's time. Other than, and to Renee's point, I think the value of like a handwritten note or an email or a call goes a long way, and just that personal touch, even more so now people crave that, I think.
We're talking really roundly about company culture, because you have to develop this kind of culture in order to do those kind of creative recognitions. So this speaks to another attendee's question that says, teamwork is so very important. Success cannot be accomplished without the team. When upper level C-suite only recognized and rewarded the department head, how do you change this leadership mindset? This is a tough one. So who wants to jump in with that?
To me, it's a very easy solution, because if it's within my institution's culture to recognize people across the board, and if there is a person who's not recognizing, or just senior people are being recognized, that person doesn't belong in the organization, because that's not fitting into the culture of the organization. So either we train that people who work with that person, or fire.
And I think just to that point, modeling it, right? Like the give recognition. If I'm going to receive recognition, I'm then going to, at that point, be like, thank you to my team and everybody who helped do this, right? It's letting folks see, and that becomes ingrained in the culture to where nobody's just like, oh, got my recognition and I'll run. But taking that approach of kind of give. Because to your point, most people, whatever is being accomplished isn't being done by one person.
Also, to a slightly related point, Paula wants to know, do you conduct employee surveys? How frequently do you check the pulse? And what are some questions that are important to ask? So this is a culture question too.
So we do full-blown engagement surveys every other year, and then we do a pulse survey every year at the corporate level. And from a culture perspective, we do ask the jobs like, I feel like what I do is important. I feel like what I do has value. I feel recognized for the work I do. I feel like I belong here. I feel like I can speak to my manager freely. I think that the company is honest in their communications with me, those type of questions, which I think are super important. And then the other ones that are just, I would recommend a friend or family member to work here. Like that says a lot, right? Those type of questions I think you can really hone in. And then we look at those results, obviously company-wide, but then by department as well. So we can look and see and coach where, and break it up by diversity and all kinds of ways you can cut the data to make sure that people are feeling that their job is important, feeling like they're making a difference, feeling like they're heard, and that, and then in the most general, question ever is, I feel good and proud to work here. And that really is going to tell you a lot about your culture.
As someone who helps organizations think through how to gather this kind of information and understand, absolutely surveys are an important tool in the toolbox, but they touch a lot of people and require a lot of people. And if we can shrink that down and think about other researcher-led techniques like focus groups or other ways to get more information or deeper information perhaps about how folks are doing, and just making sure you're getting some representation from around the organization in that, you can learn a lot without taxing as much of the organization or making people feel surveyed to death or anything.
I like to echo that. I think it's always great to have multiple ways to collect data. The surveys are amazing, and to add to what Danae said, I agree with those questions. And some of the questions are, I'm allowed to bring my whole self to work. My manager understands me. I'm able to achieve what I want. I see a future with the organization. There's a myriad of questions that can be asked to really understand, and you can ask the same question differently and really find out what people are saying. And at times it's also great to have the option for things to be anonymous, and that's when you really get the truth. Although sometimes people think that their IP addresses are still being followed, and they're afraid to identify who they are. But to what Sean said, I think after, like, I love data, because once you get the data, that informs how you can change things in terms of the policies, procedures, education, and training. And I remember once doing a survey, and after that, it came about where the members of the LGBTQ community felt marginalized. And so as a result of that, it facilitated a focus group in order to really kind of get deep into what the issues were. So definitely, I think the data collection should be multifaceted, and it's always extremely helpful to do that. So.
Thank you. We're going to have to stop there. That's all the time we have. If we didn't get to your question, or you had a specific one for an individual panelist, feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn. We're there. We're there to help. Now to Steve.
Thanks, Lydia, and to all of our wonderful speakers, Dionne, Renee, Danae, Sean, and Pramod. I wanted to recognize you all. It was wonderful. Some wonderful ideas about how to recognize employees. Thanks again to Lumapps, Peakon, Reflektive as our sponsors, and to all of you for participating today. If you'd like to join us for more virtual events, you can head to our website, fromday1.co, and check out more of our upcoming webinars. We have one coming this Tuesday, July 28th at 2 p.m. on bridging the voice gap, how diverse points of view can help a company thrive. Then the following Tuesday, August 4th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, consolidate your HR operations in one portal with Kintone. So thanks everyone, and stay well.